GM, everyone. GM. Okay, okay. Anyhow, but it's just to represent vibe in Web3 ecosystem, just the way we vibe and greet. So I'm Dave, and in this segment, I will be walking us through the introduction to what Starknet testing using SnForge. There are a lot of toolings, but I'm particularly interested in walking us through how we could start our project using SnForge to test our smart contracts. So we'll be walking through the benefits of testing in the course of this session. So for those who don't know me, I'm Dave, and I'm a Web3 instructor at Blockheader, and I'm happy and glad, excited, always pleased to always walk people through sessions like this. I'm happy, humbled, excited to be part of the Starknet Africa family. So yes, so why test? A lot of us will be wondering why test. So if you are coming from a Web 2 background, basically what happens is, next slide, why test? So basically what happens is you don't really care. As far as you've built a functionality, it's working, you don't really care. It's working, you've pushed to production, and a lot of people are using that code. It doesn't matter. As far as it's working. Nobody cares, right? Unfortunately, that's not the case for Web 3. In Web 3, it's the wild, wild west, where your code is open. Nobody wants to build a bank. Remember, we all know how banks are built. Imagine you building your bank in one crisis-prone area. For instance, we have one place like that in Kaduna, where we call it Black Street. A lot of people, they sell a lot of hard drugs there. No bank will want to situate their organization in that kind of environment. So for that, imagine you in that kind of environment building a glass house, where as people are entering into that banking hall, they're carrying their cash. You're seeing them trying to deposit money. You're seeing them trying to withdraw money. And it's a glass house. The criminals are there watching. Come on, what's happening? And they are trying to take the hold of people, they're trying to accost people entering the bank. And they say that nobody's even holding them. So what is going to happen? It's a field day for these bad, malicious actors. And for that reason, no bank for such reason will want to situate their bank structure in that kind of crisis-prone environment. In the same vein, building in Web3 is like building, imagine a honeypot where a lot of, it's just like coming here and putting a transparent bag filled with money. A lot of bad actors who want to take hold of that money, right? It is just you and your good conscience that, okay, this money is not for me, and I will not take it. Otherwise, bad malicious actors who want to, come on, let's try it and see. This is free money. And of course, what happens? They take it and they are gone. That's why we have a lot of hacks in Web3 ecosystem. Now, why test? One of the reasons why test is very important is to guarantee intended functionality and security. Yes, every logic that you write should be well tested to make sure that it works as intended. Does that make sense? So if you're going to write anything in Web3 using Cairo, I'm happy with a lot of developers are coming into the ecosystem. It's going to be very important for us to pay attention to security. I think we have the likes of Diecode here, who have been doing an amazing job. Diecode, all the way from Kenya, Nairobi. He has been an amazing guy, building, contributing to best security approaches for the ecosystem. And we are glad to have you here. Diecode, please raise your hand so that people can see you. He says, top security researcher. We intend to get at NetaMind, and I'm happy to connect with him here in real life. Yeah. So that is one of the reasons why testing is very important. So to prevent costly errors during development, small errors could result to significant losses. So it's always important to not always rely on post-deployment errors. So before you even deploy your solution, why don't you test it rigorously through varying degrees of conditions and make sure that this logic works as intended before pushing to production? Does that make sense? Now, to enhance trust and reliability, this is one important reason why you should test. So users will want to, yes, these codes have been thoroughly tested. come on, okay, why not? We'll give it a try and all that. Although that may not always be the case, but at least it instills to some degree trust in the users that are going to utilize that product. So yes, continuous improvement and iteration. Yes, it's a rapidly evolving ecosystem. We all started writing Cairo 0. Yeah, Darlington, kudos to you for making it simple for developers to come onto the ecosystem. Before now, if you've written Cairo 0 was a hell. Writing the hash built-ins, all those pedancings, all those things were kind of cumbersome. And it's, you have a product, you must keep up with what? The ecosystem. Cairo 0, Cairo 1, Cairo 2. These are all versions of Cairo. Now we have Cairo 2. So you must write tests because of the evolving nature of the ecosystem, right? We are still at the very nascent stage of Starknet development, so we're going to have lots of evolvement till it gets better, right? Now, yes, this is a very important part. Always remember, it's an adversarial environment. You don't want to get wrecked. Who knows rec.news? Rec.news. Rex.news is home to all hacks. If you want to see what's happening in the ecosystem, go to rec.news. Most protocols whose contracts have been hacked, I think they aggregate this information, and you can actually see that billions of dollars have been stolen. And one of the common vulnerability most of these protocols are vulnerable to is reentrancy. So imagine you deploying a product that is going to hold custody of billions of dollars, and reentrancy is just a vulnerability that is going to drain money, assets from that particular protocol. So if it's thoroughly tested, I think it's a way to like foresee it and mitigate against it. So you can actually write it in such a way that it guards against reentrancy. So yeah, you don't want your you don't want your protocol to be wrecked, so you should properly test your code. Now, there are categories of tests. Unit tests. I think because of, I don't know if time will allow me. Remember, every code you write, you must what? Test it. Even the normal addition, we have a situation where you could sum two numbers and you think that particular logic is really not, you don't need any test for that. As far as smart contract development is concerned, your addition logic, you should test it appropriately and make sure it returns what is meant to return. Does that make sense? So every line of code must be tested. So we are going to walk through all that. So unit test, you could have, yeah. So the functions are actually separated into small chunks, and you write test for all of the, probably if you have probably for instance, I have a counter contract I'm going to show us. All functions inside that module should be thoroughly tested. And yeah, and so we'll see that in the hands-on session. So integration testing. Contracts can have interactions. So probably in the case where you have more than one contract, they interact, and you could test that using integration test. Then end-to-end, this is a simulation of how users will interact with the DApp. I think this is the outdated version of this, but anyways, yeah. So the next one is, so the most important thing the most important aspect of this talk today is to bring us to understand a tool that I'll be using for what? Testing. It's called, so it's a framework developed by Software Mansion called what? Starknet Foundry. So when you install Starknet Foundry and you run SnForge up, it does two things, right? It gives you the SNcast, which is the module and the binary that's responsible for interacting, making interactions, making calls, invoking a contract that you've deployed, and we have what? The SnForge, This module is what we are interested in, and that is why we are all gathered here to learn how to utilize this particular module, right? To what? Test our smart contract. So yeah, like I said, SnForge is a test runner. So it's a Starknet testing framework. So developed by Software Mansion. So it has evolved. So the previous ones for Cairo Zero was Protostar. Now we have SnForge, right? So you can install it using this command. So simply just, yeah, your terminal automatically, you have that on your shell. And if you have SCAP, just simply run this command, SCAP add SnForge. That automatically that gives you access to what? SnForge. So first of all, to use SnForge, you must what? Install SCAP. So SCAP, if you don't know, the way you have your NPM for node, if you want to spin up an Express server node like that. So NPM is what? The package manager for JavaScript for node, right? So if you want to, a lot of packages are when you go to npm.js, but in this case, we in Starknet in Cairo, we have something similar. We have what? SCAP. So right, so it holds custody of a lot of libraries, toolings that are really relevant. So you just do SCAP add that particular dependence in that package. Automatically, it gives you access to accessing the libraries, the methods in that library. Yeah. So you must install what? Starknet Foundry, which I earlier mentioned is the testing framework. So a lot of things here, but I'm really interested in the hands-on session. I don't know if we can go through that. I need to share my screen. This is not my screen. Is that one? All right. I don't know because I have I actually thought we could like do some simple stuff, then go gradually to more advanced. So just to give us a simulation of some cheat codes that we can utilize for testing, we just spin up a project from scratch using SnForge in it, and we run some basic tests. I don't know if I have access to any way I can share my screen. So yeah, because of technical difficulties, but anyways, we have I think I've pushed the code to our repo, Blockheader Web3 community, where you can access. I think I'll share it with Paul so that he can publish it, and anybody that wants to access that code can access it from there. So basically, when you do, this is supposed to be the hands-on session, so just permit me, guys. So a fresh on your root, anywhere you want to put your project, just do what? SnForge init, right? Then your what? Project name. So yeah, so make sure you have an underscore. So automatically what it does, I'm coming, hold on. So what that does, it gives you an SRC file where you can house like the contract you want to test. And we have the tests folder where you can house what the test logic that you're trying to test against the contract you're trying to test. So now, then this scap.toml, and basically, this is going to be hard without sharing my screen and showcasing what I have to test. But the thing is, ideally, when you run this command, it spins up a project structure for you. And within the test folder, that is where you can have the logic for testing, right? Does that make sense? Are we together? Some of us are coming from, I think, from Solidity. It's kind of similar to where you have had. But in this case, before you start utilizing the deployed contract, there are two steps, actually. So let's talk about them. We have what? to deploy your contract, unlike Solidity, it's not a one-step process. We have 2 steps. We have what? We have declaration and what we have deployment. So basically what declaration does is what? It gives you what? Class hash. And this gives us what? Contract address. So yeah. So before you start testing, you should have what? Your deployment script. So because eventually you're going to deploy a given contract. So you're going to what? Have a deploy utility function where you're going to first of all declare the contract you want to what? Deploy. And this automatically gives us what? A contract like it gives us the contract class. Then in the case where the contract has a constructor that has some arguments, you pass in those arguments in an array. Then you call what? The deploy. So automatically by deploying that particular contract, it gives you what? The contract address. Are we following? Are we together? Unfortunately, this would have been seamless if we had what's it called? My screen showcasing what it is I'm talking about. But unfortunately, due to technical reasons, I will try to walk us through how testing works. So this is basically that. So within that test folder, specify the name of a file that you want to test a given contract. So in the case we have, let's say, in our SRC file, we have our, let's say, counter contract, right? .cairo. So we will have a test within the test folder. We can have tests counter contract, and then follow this procedure to what? Within this file, we will have a what? A deployment logic. So this logic, like I mentioned, we are going to declare and deploy that particular contract. And the end product of deployment is what? To get the contract address that we will use to target what? The dispatcher. And that gives us access to all the methods within that particular contract. Does that make sense? So dispatchers are like interfaces in Solidity. So let's not get it all mixed up. So passing a corresponding contract address to a dispatcher, it gives you an instance of that contract, and you can call the respective methods. So in the case where we have, so remember, guys, let's remember this guy. So let's say this guy had what? Set count and what? Get count. So basically what is going to happen is to have these functions, we need to have an interface, right? So a trait. So every contract has a trait and what? An implementation block. So within the trait block, we have that is where we have the interface that exposes how we can call set count and get count outside this contract during testing. Does that make sense? So when we specify this particular trait, it gives us a dispatcher. Let me write it. So this dispatcher, when we pass in the contract address, right? When we pass in the contract address of this dispatcher, we have an instance of this contract already that we can call get count and set count and perform our test in the test folder. Does that make sense? Are we following? So basically that. Unfortunately, like I mentioned, the technical glitch cannot make me not continue. I will have to deliver as much as I can. So please try to follow. If I'm too fast, try to call my attention. I'll go over it again. So yeah. Okay, so I'm being signaled that I have just 5 minutes. So basically that, so by having the dispatcher passing the contract address, we can call the corresponding methods that we want to test within our smart contract, right? So now, okay, let me wrap up. Let me wrap up and take questions. So yeah, So best practices for testing, coverage. Please, can you go back to the slide if you can? Coverage and maintainability. Please ensure that your test suite provides comprehensive coverage. Like I mentioned, every logic within your contract should be what? You must test that it works as what intended, and is very important. Then the next is performance consideration. Optimize your unit tests to minimize gas consumption and execution time. Properly document what you're testing. Have a very detailed README file that people that are outside your team can actually look at it and know what it is you're testing, and contribute as much as possible. Then continuous improvement. So regularly review and refine your test logic to keep up with the rapidly changing Starknet ecosystem. So in conclusion, in this very session, we have explored the capability of Starknet Foundry for testing Starknet contracts, in this case, SnForge, which will always guarantee the functional integrity of the logic of our contracts. And it is on this note that if you want to follow me on Twitter, that's my handle. And if you want to follow Blockheader is a Web3 ecosystem. I think we have, to a great extent, like onboarded a lot of developers into the Starknet ecosystem. This is our second cohort being organized in partnership with Starknet Foundation to teach and equip people with relevant skills of writing Starknet contracts. And we've been doing amazing by the grace of God. A lot of open source contributions in all the only does OD hacks. Yeah, and we have proof. We have a lot of people who are here, and they can testify. Yeah, so that's my Twitter handle. And wag me. If I say wag me, you say you are all going to make it. Wag me. Thank you very much. If you have questions, please feel free to ask. I think I'll take one question or two before I hand over the mic to the next speaker. Yeah. Yes. It's just... yes, actually, it does. It's a very robust framework. If you're very familiar with Foundry, right, for Solidity, it works the same way, right? You can do a lot of, there are a lot of cheat codes, start prank, stop prank, all those things, yeah. So they are all available for you to utilize, yeah. Is that any other questions? So let me just call it a day. Thank you very much for your time, and connect with me and see you at the top.